What is going on, guys? Dave from Wake Up Is Football, alongside of Idiot Ezra, as well as a special guest today, Joel Rodriguez, on the Red Zone Blitz. Bringing you guys, I guess, a special Easter episode for those who celebrate. Happy Easter, and we're going to dive right into this. Again, welcome to the Red Zone Blitz in partnership with Idiot Ezra Podcast. So, bringing in Ez, man. Ez, you ready to discuss some of these top snubs, if you want to call them, for the all-decade team of the 2010s?
Yeah, I guess we should start off who was named onto this 2010s all-decade team by Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I guess we're going to start off with quarterback, right? Who made it, Dave?
Do we want to read off the entire list first? Maybe? Just to get all the names out there. For offense, let's start with offense. With your quarterbacks, you got Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Running back, Frank Gore, Marshawn Lynch, LaShawn McCoy, and Adrian Peterson. I guess I should also note Tom Brady and Adrian Peterson so far have been unanimous selections. At wide receiver, Antonio Brown, Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones. At flex, they put Darren Sproles. Tight end, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce. And then you have your offensive linemen being Jason Peters, Tyron Smith, Joe Staley, Joe Thomas, who was a unanimous decision or selection, Jari Evans, Logan Mankins, Zach Martin, Marshall Yanda, another unanimous selection, and then at center, Alex Mack and Marquise Pouncey. So we can go back up to quarterback, like you mentioned. Your boy Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers on the list. What do you think?
My Carol Baskin made it to the all-decade team. You know, all I know is when I first read this list, you know, there's a couple names that jumped out and that didn't make it and who made it. And when it comes to the quarterback list, the name that jumped out that didn't make it is Drew Brees. And obviously, they only selected two quarterbacks, and they went with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. We all know why Tom Brady was selected. He won 3 Super Bowls in the decade, and, you know, the consensus, quote unquote, the greatest cheater, the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady was selected here. Drew Brees is the argument. Now, you're going to try to replace Aaron Rodgers, and if you compare the numbers, Drew Brees actually has the most yards, touchdowns, for the decade. And obviously, he's a big-time winner, too, in the sense of, driving his team to the playoffs. So that's the name that sticks out that didn't make the team. Now, would I replace Aaron Rodgers with Drew Brees? That's a tough one. And I think the reason he got the nudge was because Drew Brees won his Super Bowl in 2009 and Rodgers won his in 2010. So that's what stuck out for me in the quarterback position.
I'm trying to think about this because the last couple seasons with Aaron Rodgers, there's been times where he's been hurt. There's also been times where, he just hasn't looked like Aaron Rodgers of 2010, 2011, even 2014 when he almost led them to that Super Bowl. So I think there is an argument to be made for Drew Brees because every single season he does put up those numbers and the stats are off the charts. I don't know how many 5,000-yard seasons he has now under his belt, but I can see the argument being there for Drew Brees. Another name that came to mind was Peyton Manning. I don't know if I don't think, I think
he had enough great seasons in this decade to warrant a strong discussion argument in this case.
Right. I was going to say
he broke a couple records.
Yeah, this decade he did. And he won a Super Bowl this decade.
Yes, he did. And he is MVP this decade, too.
Yeah, he had the 55 touchdown season this decade, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can put his name out there. So
I think they're right, though. It's those two. It's Brady and Rodgers. Those are the two best quarterbacks of this decade.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, if you go through, let's say the eye test or the media test, besides last year, the last couple of years, how many people were saying Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the league?
all the
That
time.
was a lot of consensus,
well.
right? Everybody was saying,
yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the league. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the league because you overlook, even though he had great, obviously these three have great stats, and you don't want to rely just on the numbers because if you go by the numbers, Drew Brees got snubbed big time. But I just think he deserves an honorable mention, which a lot of outlets have been giving him. Hey, he should be on this list, et cetera, et cetera. But I think they got to, I hate to say it. They have, both of them have better numbers than Tom Brady, but you can't argue against 3 Super Bowls and, the dominance and all that. You can't argue too much, except they cheated. But that's not the point here. It disgusts me to say they got it right with Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, but Drew Brees deserves some love. And for a second, for a Packers fan, Dave, I thought you were about to just throw your boy off the list.
Well, if he, it's so hard, man, because statistically speaking, I think Drew Brees is probably the best quarterback of all time. That he just throws for yards and yards and yards and yards, and the next game you tune in the next Sunday, he throws for yards. It's like every game minimum is 300-yard game for him. He just slings the ball, and nobody talks about his stature. Nobody talks about his height. He's a shorter quarterback, and he's still getting it done.
I don't think that deserves a discussion. Really,
I don't know, because
listen, I know what you mean. He led the league. Drew Brees led the league in passing yards 5 times this decade. He had a completion rate of 4 times this decade, over 70. 5 times, 70% completion rate 5 times this decade. I understand Drew Brees deserves this discussion, deserves to be mentioned. But like I said, how many times we all said Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback for how many years this decade? For at least 3-4 years.
I'd say half the decade.
Okay, and earlier the decade,
he does it everywhere. He does it everywhere too. There's no split. There's like no home and away split. There's no dome 8 games a year. I honestly, I think that's what keeps Brees from being mentioned, whether that's fair or unfair. I think that's a big thing. I think everybody says that he plays in optimum conditions half the year, and those are usually his bigger games. And Rodgers for one changed like the way we even he done things we've never seen quarterbacks do. Like he throws on the run as well as some quarterbacks throw in the pocket clean. You know what I mean? Like we've never seen that until Mahomes came and just blew that out the water. But Rodgers just did like the way what Rodgers did in his peak was not seen before by anybody ever. So he's definitely top.
How many discussions? Let's say not that I like the show. What the hell? First Take. How many shows like this say, "Hey, is Aaron Rodgers the most talented quarterback of all time?" That just speaks to his to his ability, the plays he's shown, the greatness that he possessed. So I think they got it right here. Come on, Dave. You got to agree with us. Come on. You're not gonna take off your boy. You're a Packers fan.
Let me give you the number one statistic that works in Aaron Rodgers' favor. That's really going to be very, very hard to beat for any quarterback going forward, and it's his touchdown to interception ratio. When you have a quarterback, a franchise guy, who does not turn the ball over, and turnovers plays, in my opinion, a key factor in whether a team wins or loses a football game. If you have a guy who does not turn that ball over, the likelihood of you winning football games drastically increases, and that's what Aaron Rodgers has done for the Packers. I guess I was just looking at it from a statistical standpoint with Drew Brees and his production. You're splitting hairs, I think, but if you guys want to keep.
Think about splitting hairs. Aaron Rodgers has 1 win over Drew Brees for the decade. 96 wins to 95 wins.
If you're looking up, are you looking up the numbers right now?
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers right now.
How many games did each of them play? Because I know Aaron has missed some time.
Well,
Rodgers definitely played fewer games than Brees.
Yeah, he played 11 fewer games than Drew Brees. Because remember, Drew Brees missed about 10, 11 games. Was it last year, 2 years ago? So they have 11 game difference. 11 game difference.
Okay.
And Drew Brees has 345 touchdowns to Aaron Rodgers 305. Same QB rating, which I don't care about that stat, but the interceptions is a big part. Okay. Drew Brees threw 127 interceptions. Aaron Rodgers at half at 63.
With 11 less games.
With 11 less games. And he blows them out the water in rushing yards, okay?
So
Drew Brees got 270 rushing yards for the decade, while Aaron Rodgers has 2,500 rushing yards for the decade.
How many did you say Brees has?
270.
Oh, wow, okay.
I mean, it's not happening though.
All right, fine. Keep my boy Aaron there. Keep him there.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm fighting with you about this.
All right,
it's all right.
Let's move on. Let's move on to running backs. You got now. I know there's gonna be some discussions here, so everybody who's watching, strap in, get your popcorn. All right, here we go. Running backs. You got Frank Gore, Marshawn Lynch, LaShawn McCoy, and Adrian Peterson. Again, Adrian Peterson was a unanimous selection. Now, out of those 4 names. I know we were talking off camera. I'm gonna let Ezra go ahead here.
Well, when it comes to names, this is another name that jumped out, and that is Frank Gore.
Yep.
Okay, we know his longevity. The man deserves the praise he gets for his longevity. You know, he's still in the league running, and he's in I think top 5 of all rushers of all time in terms
third,
of yards.
right?
Is he third?
Like 3rd or 4th, something like that.
Yeah, he's up there, obviously. But when all-decade team, I think of some of the best players, right, that played in the decade. At one point, I don't think I ever thought Frank Gore was the best running back in the football or a top 3 running back in football. I never thought that about him.
Right.
So the names that I'm going to throw out there to replace him, I got 2 names. First, this name I went with kind of strongly. I went with Adrian Foster, the Texans running back.
Arian Foster. Yep.
Arian Foster. Sorry. The man was a touchdown machine, okay? I'll put it to you like this. Frank Gore played 153 games this decade. Foster played 74. That's double, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had 51 touchdowns to Frank Gore's 47. He had double an amount of games and still didn't surpass him in touchdown, and he was a better wide receiver threat. Foster, I thought, deserved consideration, but my number 1 guy to replace Frank Gore, which I never really didn't really love him during his prime, but who had a lot of great seasons, well, statistically, is Matt Forte. I'm going with a Chicago Bear.
No, you're going with a Jet. Matt Forte, man. He was a very productive running back. I'll give him that, but I want to just go back real quick on Arian. What was his span for his career? From what year to what year did he play? Do you have that up?
For who?
Arian Foster.
Oh, he played from 2009 to 2016, but obviously we're going from 2010. And in 2010, he led the league in rushing. He had the league in rushing touchdowns with 16, and he was a dual threat. He had 600 yards, also receiving. He went over. I'll put it to you like this: he went over for scrimmage yards, 1,500 yards, 4 seasons. 3 of them were 1,600 yards. When Frank Gore only had 1,500 yards per scrimmage, 1 season throughout the decade.
And Foster had how many?
He had 4.
Okay.
And like I said, he was a touchdown machine. He had 3 straight years with double-digit touchdowns. You know, so you gotta. I don't know. That's just.
This to me is a classic case of what do you value more, right? Do you value people's numbers as a whole throughout the decade, or do you value who is better at their peak, right? What player, if you were to choose one or the other in their prime, who would you rather take? Arian Foster in his prime is a much better player than Frank Gore. I think we both can agree with that. I think Matt Forte is too. I think Jamal Charles is too. There's just other guys that I just felt like, you put them, if I were to start a team, Frank Gore would be further down on the list. But when you compare his, put his whole decade, the whole, his whole story together, his numbers, he had the second most rushing yards in the decade, right? I think McCoy had the most and Gore was second most. Like, you can't ignore that. But it's just what do you value more? I know to go to baseball for a second, Ez and I used to have this argument about Jim Thome, right? Where I always felt Jim Thome wasn't a Hall of Famer because I think Thome is along the lines of Frank Gore, that he just, played a whole bunch of years and, had some nice years, but I never saw Thome as like that dominant or that great. And I think Gore is even the worst, like an even better case for that, more than Thome. Like I've never seen Gore and be like, yo, this guy's like a top 5 guy. Never seen it. But he just played so many years that it just, it all adds up to him being third all time in rushing, and you just can't ignore it. So what do you value more? Do you value peak, or do you value whole, all those stats?
See,
that's just really what comes down to.
If you're talking about Frank Gore from the previous decade, I could try and see an argument. I mean, if you look at his second season in the league with the 49ers, okay, the man had, where did it go? Where did that number go?
You're going to 1984.
I'm going to 2006. I'm going to 2006. He had 23. That's first downs. My bad. Hold on. Where's the touchdown?
He had 8 touchdowns.
I was gonna say he had 23 touchdowns.
He had 8 touchdowns. But he had 1,700, almost 1,700 yards rushing. That was his best year. Was his second year in the league.
Yeah.
But he was never a threat outside of the backfield either. He would just, the most he ever had was, which was the second year. I think he had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, and that year he had 480 yards receiving. But that's 2006. We're talking about this decade,
right.
Which he had 5 seasons over 1,000 yards. Hey, we're not, obviously none of the players we're picking here are scrubs. Okay, we're not saying these guys don't deserve any accolades and they're not good, but Frank Gore never, like Joel just said, never came up to me. You know what? I want Frank Gore as my. I don't even think he was a first round pick in fantasy football.
Even like somebody like he kind of came in the middle of the last decade, so I don't know. I don't even want to say him because I don't know what the numbers are really, but like somebody like MJD, right? Like if you were to pick like his peak numbers versus Gore,
he blows him out the water.
He's way better than him, but his stats just don't come close to Gore's or like overall. Like, he died out at the age where most running backs die out, 28, 29. 30, whereas Gore just find a way to keep playing. And Gore's story is amazing because everybody knows he tore his knees up in college. Everybody thought he was cooked already then. He fought just to get drafted, and now look. So Frank Gore is an amazing man, amazing story. I just can't see him. When you say all decade, to me, it's the 4 best, right? The 4 best running backs, and I just can't fix my mouth to say he was one of the 4 best running backs in this decade. I just can't.
To add to Frank Gore a little bit here, when you look at the statistics, right, for all these running backs, they all died out, 5-6 years into the league, besides Adrian Peterson, so it's a testament to his longevity. But I am going to go back to that argument too. Peak, never thought he was the top 5 running back at any point that I can think of. So he's not on my list.
Here comes Dave to defend him. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm just I was trying to see if there was an argument to be made against somebody else who's on the list.
Those 3 are good, man.
I'm talking about Marshawn Lynch.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I mean, last year he didn't really play. 2018 he played for 6 games. 2015 he played in 7 games. From 2011, 12, 13, and 14, those were his prime seasons. So he had 4 out of the 10 years in this prior decade where he was extremely, extremely dominant, and that was it.
I think he got the Tom Brady effect in the sense that he was so pivotal to their playoff success. He was the offense for the Seahawks, even though Russell Wilson deserves, to me, he's probably the best quarterback in the league right now today. But at that time, it was a run-first team. And Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. We already know about his accolades in the playoffs. He was just, I think his playoff performance is what puts him on this list. But once again, if you want to go with peak, I might go with Foster over Lynch, peak-wise, or Jamal Charles. But
I think Jamal Charles is one of the 4 best running backs in this decade at their peak. Maybe his numbers may not see it because he got hurt so much, and he doesn't have the longevity or even 5 or 6 years. But Jamal Charles at his peak, like peak Jamal Charles, was scary.
Yeah.
Like it was more. Only AP I felt was more scary than him. So it wasn't my call. But if you would tell me who were the 4 best running backs of this decade, Jamal Charles would definitely be on that list.
So who's he replacing for you? Is he replacing Lynch? He
would replace Gore for sure. Dave made a pretty good point on Lynch. Do you think the thing with Lynch is, one, Lynch was super dominant at some point, right? And a couple points in his career was super dominant. He probably has the most famous run of the decade, right? The run against the Saints,
yeah.
the playoff game, right? He probably has. That's probably like the most memorable run of the decade. And he was such a massive personality too. Like I think all that comes into play.
Lynch is this decade's Terrell Davis?
Maybe. I mean, I think he was better for a longer period than Terrell Davis, but
no, I'm just saying in the sense that it was his playoff performances that really drove him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the thing people remember of Lynch is his playoff performances, the Seattle Seahawks, going to the Super Bowl by running the ball.
Mm-hmm. What about if we talking peak too? What about Le'Veon Bell too?
Yeah, I was looking at Le'Veon Bell. He had 3 great seasons, and you're talking about a dual threat. He might be a better wide receiver than a running back.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways. So he does. I was looking at him too. I gave him consideration, but I don't think.
I didn't put him in my top 4, but he's another one that if you were to look at him at his best versus what's the name of his best, Gore, I can't put Gore over him.
All right. Well, here's what I'm gonna chime in and say. I'm gonna replace Gore with Jamal Charles. After looking at some of these numbers, and here's the if Le'Veon Bell did not sit out for 2018 and played that season, I would replace Marshawn Lynch with Le'Veon Bell. But right now, I would keep Lynch.
That's fair. I can see that.
Yeah, that's fair. But, you got to give the time off. I mean, he missed the season, right? So that takes away and all that. And we got a few comments in the chat room if you want to go through that, Dave.
Sure. Let's do a FanDuel comment box. We got a lot of the guys from last week, a lot of the guys from prior years. XKT, Tomahawk, Dre the Great, Ramon. I don't know, man. I'm going to butcher that last name. I'm going to just say Ramon. But we got a lot of questions, a lot of comments here. Harrison Smith was snubbed from XKT. I believe XKT is a Vikings fan. So that's an interesting take. Later. We'll get to the defense in a little bit. Ramon says Jamal Charles over Gore. So kind of, I mean, would you say that it was kind of all in agreement that after we kind of talked about it, Jamal Charles should be on this list?
I think so. Bro, he was getting 1,500 yards and averaging like 5.5 yards a carry.
Listen,
it was crazy what he was doing.
I don't know if I would put Jamal Charles on that list. Listen, I love Jamal Charles. I think I just said in the beginning, I'm not a fan of Matt Forte, but I'm not gonna slight his consistency. And he was a dual threat. Just Jamal Charles was also a dual threat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna stick with Matt Forte replacing Frank Gore. I'm keeping the 4. Well, I mean that's the only one I'm replacing. I'm only replacing one running back.
Okay, so you put Forte over Frank Gore.
Yeah.
All right.
Even though I don't, believe me, I like Foster and Charles more than Frank Gore and Matt Forte, but I'm gonna go with the consistency because if Matt Forte had about, I don't want to go back into that whole argument, but he had a more consistent decade.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's move on to the wide receivers. 4 receivers on the list: Antonio Brown, Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson, and Julio Jones. Fellas, what do you guys think? Anybody should be on or off this list?
I think I don't see a problem with any of them. I mean, go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead. No, I'll let you finish, then I'll go because you have no problem.
I was gonna say if there's a couple names that stick out, maybe AJ Green, because AJ Green's had a lot of really, really good years in Cincinnati, and but it also goes to like who would you rather have on your team, right? And Megatron, I think if I mean going by how I know Ez and the little I know about Dave, um, if we're gonna look at stats, maybe Megatron is probably the one that sticks out as far as the one that needs to go, but he's the most talented guy of the four that made the team. So that it's just a matter of like who would you again. It's kind of goes back to the running back and the quarterback thing. I can't take. He was the most dominant. Like when he played, just so talented and so good. I can't take him out. But go ahead, bro.
The name I'm going with is Larry Fitzgerald out.
Ooh,
That's what I'm going with. I'm going with Larry Fitzgerald, and I'm going with. I think you could put AJ Green and Hopkins over Larry Fitzgerald.
I got another name.
40. Okay, what name you got?
Because I would say Larry Fitz as well if I was taking out a name, but I got another name to add to that list.
Who's that?
Well, Odell Beckham, man.
Nah,
he only has what, 3 years? 3 years maybe?
Hold on a second with Odell. No, he's been in the league since 2014. That's over half that decade.
Okay. Okay. How many?
One of
how
which
many
those
great
years,
seasons did he have?
One of those years he was hurt. The other 5, he had at least 1,000 yards. So 5 out of the 6 seasons that he played, he's been a dominant receiver. The first.
Not this past year.
Yeah, he wasn't dominant that year, man.
Not this past year.
You can blame that on Cleveland.
No, you said he was hurt, but we're talking. We can't go semantics too much, right?
He wasn't dominant his last year with the Giants either.
No, but he did have 1,000 yards.
No, yeah, he had 1052, right? But he wasn't like a dominant, his rookie year was dominant. His second year was probably like his absolute best year. His third year was good, and then after that, it's been hit or miss, really.
Well, okay. I think
go ahead. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
I was gonna say at this point, when it comes to Larry Fitzgerald, I think this decade, a little more like the Frank Gore effect here.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, that's fair.
This decade, I'm just talking about this decade. We know peak Larry Fitzgerald was one of the top wide receivers in football. The man never drops the ball. We know his fantastic hands. We know that. But he had 47 more games than AJ Green and Hopkins, and he's only got 1,000 yards more for the decade. Okay? And he has 2 less touchdowns than AJ Green and only 7 more than Hopkins for the decade. And if you want to go a quarterback play, the best quarterback on this list was probably AJ Green with Andy Dalton.
Well, Carson Palmer was pretty good too.
Carson Palmer was pretty good, and Watson obviously the last couple of years with Hopkins. Mm-hmm. But I might go with if you look at the body of work of the decade, I was thinking about Hopkins. I really was. I want to put him there, but I'm gonna go with AJ Green. The man had let me pull it up. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons over 1,000 yards, and he missed another one due to injuries. He only played 10 games when he had 960 yards one year, and not with the greatest quarterback either. I like Andy Dalton. Let me not slight him. He's a good, solid quarterback, and I think AJ Green has been a top 5 wide receiver in this league for quite of the decade. So I'm going to go with AJ Green over Larry Fitzgerald.
One thing I'd like to say about Larry Fitz, if you look at his numbers though, and it's funny because this is what this is what makes guys' careers is their numbers. We're looking at numbers. We're not watching them play out on the field right now. 2015 through 2017 for Larry Fitzgerald. Okay. 3 consecutive seasons with over 100+ receptions. At his age, because this is later in his career. Okay. Each one of those seasons, he had over 1,000 yards, and the touchdown production was 9, 6, and 6. So for someone to do that later on in his what is he? How old is he now? He's 36 now, so that would have been 32, 3, and 4. I think it would have been his age in those seasons. That's pretty damn good. Okay.
We know this. We know this.
So with AJ Green, I think he definitely suffered from Well, you can't really say that about because Fitzgerald also probably suffered from the same with poor quarterback play. But I mean, I think
all three, the three I named was poor
I
quarterback.
think AJ suffered the most from playing for who he played for, who he's played for too. Cincinnati's kind of like like the Bermuda Triangle of the NFL. It's just a team we don't really like pay attention to the most. Like they're just the most neglected. But he's had a Hall of Fame type career, if you ask me. If you look at his numbers, like if you just put those numbers like just in a blanket, like just don't put a name to it, don't put any other accolades near it, right? Just put the stats down year after year. That's a Hall of Fame career. So I mean, I could see the fight for AJ Green. This is another thing where we ask for like peak over stats, right? Now, this decade, right? Larry Fitzgerald's peak over Brandon Marshall. Who's a better player?
Oh, I'm going to go with Brandon Marshall. You know, I'm a big Brandon Marshall guy.
Yeah,
over
you
here.
are. I forgot about your top five stuff. But yeah, but like it's just another like it looks like it just from looking at how they voted, they've definitely went with numbers first, as opposed to like impact or like maybe like a 3 or 4 year peak, like how great you were. Because I mean, you mentioned Odell Beckham. I would probably put Michael Thomas over Odell Beckham. He's only played 1 year fewer, but he's his 4 years have been the best 4 years in the history of the league to start a career. But then nobody's gonna put him there. But he's been amazing, like for the second half of this decade. But yeah, it looks like just from them going, with the exception of Breeze, which is interesting because Breeze's stats like are better than career wise are better than Rodgers, but it just looks like they're going numbers over actual impact. I'm
And
looking now. Demaryius Thomas has the third most receiving yards of this decade.
I thought about that name too. There's a lot of wide receivers. I think you could throw names into this conversation. And I want to give a shout out to Ramon in the comment box. He said Mike Evans over Odell Beckham Jr. for the last couple, since the start of his career. Mike Evans has had a nice. If you look at the numbers,
yeah, his numbers, yes, numbers wise, yeah. I don't think he's a better wide receiver than Beckham, but yes, his numbers have been. It's just like AJ. If you just take away the name and just throw the numbers down, it's like, damn, this guy's been outstanding.
And I want to tell Ramon also. I said Andy Dalton he said we're sleeping on Andy Dalton as a quarterback. Hey, I said he was the best quarterback out of the three wide receivers I was mentioning, and I said he was a solid. And I thought the Bears should have picked him up last year, but that's a different conversation for a different day. I like Andy Dalton, but let's not put him in a in a category that he doesn't really deserve. Believe me, I like Andy Dalton.
No, I don't mind him either. I just think the last couple seasons have been rough for him. But I think it's gonna be hard to remove Fitz from that list. I think he's more of a heart choice. I'm looking now. Demaryius Thomas has more yards and touchdowns than Fitzgerald this decade.
I'm going to go with AJ Green. I'm replacing him. I'm putting my spot in. I'm replacing Larry Fitzgerald with AJ Green. Even though if you want to look at Hopkins' numbers, Demaryius Thomas, a lot of wide receivers, we can go with the back and forth argument about peak years, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think there's no wrong answer here. And Larry Fitzgerald he's a Hall of Famer. Okay, he's a guaranteed Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greats, one of the greatest
draft class.
Top 3 greatest hands of all time, probably. And it's another testament. How many years in the league? I don't know, 17, something ridiculous. For a wide receiver, unheard of. Okay. So but I'm gonna go AJ Green this decade.
Well, I've got a replacement for this next group.
Wait, did you make any moves for wide receiver?
No, it's
you're keeping Larry Fitz. You can keep him if you want. It's your team, baby.
Because the arguments for a couple of those guys you guys just mentioned, yes, I agree with them. It's just like we mentioned earlier at the beginning of this whole thing. He's more of like the Frank Gore on the list for wide receivers. So if you're removing anybody between the four, between Brown, Fitzgerald, Johnson, and Jones, I'd probably get rid of Fitz. But right now I'm gonna keep him there.
Well, I don't want to put him too much into that Frank Gore category because Larry Fitzgerald has been a top 5 wide receiver in this league. He was a special talent, and I think he means obviously a lot more to his organization than Frank Gore ever meant to the 49ers or any team. Larry Fitzgerald is a hands down first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think Frank Gore is.
But he will
Even
be.
though he'll get it because based on his numbers.
Right. He will be. He'll get in. But for tight ends, we're going to go over the flex spot. I don't think anybody cares about the flex spot. They got Darren Sproles there. Does anybody want to argue that?
I don't understand the criteria for some of these things.
I don't understand it either, because what does that even mean?
Yeah,
I don't
know,
like
if
an
we go over the
offensive,
flex,
an
I'm going with
offensive
Leon
weapon.
Washington.
It's rough.
Let's go to tight ends. They got Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce here.
Mm-hmm.
I got a name
You
I
have a
could
problem
remove.
with this?
Yes,
So,
I
come on,
do.
let's know. What name you got here?
Jason Witten.
Jason Witten.
He played the entire decade.
He's another one. Just like he's like Fitz and Gore, man. He's in that same boat.
But every season that he was in the league, when you think of the discussion, if you were saying, all right, 2010, who's my top 10 tight ends in the NFL, and you did that for every year, Jason Witten his name would be on that list.
Yeah.
The reason I'm gonna disagree with Joel a little bit here, saying he's like Frank Gore and all that. Tight end, obviously, they're more of a wide receiver threat now, right? But we forget the aspect blocking here too, and Jason Witten, I think a lot of time through his career, especially early in the decade, we would have went with Jason Witten is a top 5 tight end in the league, even though it's not the deepest position in the league. Okay, it's not that hard, quote unquote, to become a top 5 tight end if you're anything good. But Jason Witten was that top 5 tight end. He was a mean blocker too. Jason, I like the name, but I'm not gonna go with it. I think another name might be considered more, and I want to go with Jimmy Graham because he was a touchdown machine with the Saints. But I don't fault you with the Jason Witten. But Travis Kelce, I think he just broke the record, right? Most consecutive seasons for a tight end for 1,000 yards.
Yeah, man. I can't take Kelce off this list, man. Kelsey's a better player than Witten to me. And I can't do it. I've seen Witten torch my team. I'm a Giants fan. Witten has torched my team every single chance he got. But he's just not better than him.
Oh man,
I've got a comparison of all three right now. I'm trying to take a look at these numbers because Kelsey's been in the league for half of the decade. Jimmy Graham was in the league for I think 9 out of the 10 years.
No, he's been the whole decade. I mean, been here the whole decade.
Oh, it was the whole decade, and so has Witten. Witten's been in the league since 2003 or something like that. I'm trying to look at these numbers here. So
Jimmy Graham had 4 years with 10 touchdowns or more in a decade, and he had 1 year with 9 touchdowns, and 1 year he led the league with 16. Jimmy Graham was a red zone beast, so that's why I thought about Jimmy Graham. His heyday with the Saints was pretty spectacular.
I think what happens with Graham too is the same thing with Breeze. Is that once he left that system and playing where he played, he just wasn't the same guy.
Yeah,
and we've had enough of a sample size with him, excuse me, outside of New Orleans to show that, oh, wait a second, maybe. I mean, he also had that injury too, but he's had enough of sample size outside of New Orleans for us to think, maybe he did benefit from playing where he was playing.
Well, obviously the quarterback play and the location, I think, definitely benefits. But for his defense, he had 1 year over 900 yards with Seattle, and he had a year with 10 touchdowns with Seattle. Mm-hmm. So he had his productive years. And see, what is he the same Jimmy Graham? Was he the All-Pro, threat? Maybe for like 1 year with Seattle, but he wasn't that guy.
No, that's a good name though. It's not. This one is hard. This one is. Let me add real quick. How was Gronk not unanimous?
That was ridiculous. Yeah, I think a couple names was. I don't think. How was Antonio Brown not unanimous? Gronk was another. But I think Gronk. I said for a couple years, when you talk about the biggest gap between the first best player and the second best player, I thought it was at tight end, and I thought that was Gronk.
Yeah, Gronk is a great. I think he's the best ever. So man, I thought if anybody would be unanimous, it'd be him. But all right.
Well, Witten and Graham must have been in that conversation then. Maybe Graham more than Witten, but maybe that's why he wasn't a unanimous decision.
So final answer: are you taking out Kelsey?
So what was this record that you guys just said he broke? What was it?
5 consecutive years with 1,000 yards. First time for tight end.
Okay, I'm seeing 4.
He's got 4.
Oh, so I guess it was 4 then.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's hard to
I should
argue
look
with
at
that.
I didn't look at Tony Gonzalez's numbers. Maybe that's one name because he still, even in his back end of his career, Tony Gonzalez was still putting up a lot of numbers. But I don't think he's compared to these guys, to be honest.
That's a good. I mean, he did play in that decade in this last decade.
He left in 2013. You can forget about Tony Gonzalez.
Kelsey's the only tight end with 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah, I know it was something like that. I thought it was 5 years. Okay, 4 years.
All right, I'll keep. All right,
it just shows how tough it is to have consistency at the tight end position, which I think helps the Jason Witten argument in some case. But I'm gonna keep the list the way it is.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it too. Kelsey's more talented, and his numbers look better too. Witten had 1 year where he had 110 catches for. He's putting up Jarvis Landry numbers over there. He had 110 catches for 1,039 yards. That was like his best year. But after that, it's been in the 70s, 70 catches, 700-yard range from what I'm seeing. That's not better than Kelsey.
All right. We'll keep it as is. So Kelsey and Gronkowski are the 2 names for tight ends. Just checking with the comment box before we switch over to defense. I think we're probably gonna switch over and not talk about offensive linemen because kind of hard to do that.
Yeah, Nick Mango to be center there. I'm just saying, whatever. But my boy Nick Mango, whatever.
So just checking with the FanDuel comment box. Cubone's in the comment box saying what's up. Tomahawk, asking about Jimmy Graham. Louis A says, David, it's been a long time. What's going on? What's going on, Louis? Or Luis, depending on how you pronounce it. Ramon says Vernon Davis over Witten. That's an interesting one.
He's more talented. I think he's a better player too. I don't know if he had a better decade though. But
he's definitely more talented. Everyone's probably more talented than Jason Witten, right?
Yeah, that's all right. Okay, that's true. But I mean, Vernon Davis had like a nice little run with what's his name, Harbaugh. But he was really, really good. But I mean, I don't know.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Come on, we got to give consistency a little bit more credit than we've been given in this podcast. I think
that's what I'm saying. Come on, man.
Man.
I mean, y'all threw Larry Fitzgerald out. Both of y'all.
At the end of it, I kept him in. That was Ez. At the end of it, I kept him.
Dave kept him.
we gotta keep consistency. Let's throw the oldest guy off.
Right.
So we move over to defense.
Yeah. I'm gonna read the names off, and then we'll get into the name or into the whatever. Okay, here we go. Defensive end, they got Calais Campbell, Cameron Jordan, Julius Peppers, and J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt was unanimous. D tackle, they got Geno Atkins, Fletcher Cox, Aaron Donald, who was unanimous, and Ndamukong Suh. Linebackers, they got Chandler Jones, Luke Kuechly, Khalil Mack, Von Miller, and Von Miller was unanimous. Bobby Wagner and Patrick Willis. At cornerback, they had 3. They had Patrick Peterson, Darrelle Revis, and Richard Sherman. At safety, they had 3. They had Eric Berry, Earl Thomas, Eric Weddle. And then they had a list of 2 defensive backs, which I'm assuming is a hybrid between the corner and safety positions. You had Chris Harris Jr. and Tyrann Mathieu. So that's the list. If we want to backtrack and go up to defensive ends, Calais.
When it came to name,
yes, go ahead.
I was talking earlier. When it came to names that jumped out, Calais Campbell, Cameron Jordan jumped out at me. Now, the only name that immediately jumped off of my head at defensive end was Cameron Wake for defensive end. But the more I did the numbers, I'm
Cameron
fine.
Wake was really good. Cameron Wake was really good.
Yeah, Cameron Wake was really good. That's the name that jumped out of my head when I saw the defensive ends. And Calais Campbell, I was like, what? But if you look at the numbers, these two, were more consistent. And I think Cameron Jordan, and maybe Wake had a better peak season here too, better than Calais Campbell. But Jordan's been more consistent, and he had this great year this past year. I can't really think of any other defensive ends to overtake these two.
I got one. What about Terrell Suggs?
That's a good one.
Was Terrell was he an outside linebacker or was he defensive end?
No, he was defensive end.
Defensive end. I was thinking maybe a guy like DeMarcus Ware.
He's another one too.
But I thought of DeMarcus Ware, but someone told me he was an outside linebacker mostly.
I don't know about he was.
For the decade, what about the Broncos?
I didn't he play in a 4-3 in Dallas? Wasn't he?
He definitely did.
Dallas
didn't run no 3-4, dog.
But we're talking about in Denver. Most of his years were in Denver this decade, I believe.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look this up. I'm curious. Let me look up where he played.
Because if you're talking about, I also thought of Justin Houston too, but he was an outside linebacker.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where it gets a little muddy too, because like they got Von Miller on there, they got Khalil Mack on there. Their job is the exact same job as Peppers and Campbell and the other defensive end. They go get the quarterback. Khalil Mack's not going to go out in coverage. I mean, Von Miller's not. So it's hard to, they should have just put pass rusher, like an edge guy more than defensive end and linebacker, because they both do the same thing, and it makes it a little bit tougher, to me at least.
Well, you know what, to add to listen, I put DeMarcus Ware, he was on my list for defensive end and all that. But over here on Pro Football Reference at Dallas, they have him listed at linebacker.
Yeah.
Okay, and here on linebacker, obviously first let me say he was on the 2000s All-Decade team. Okay, so this is his second chance to be in another decade team. Well, not a real second chance, because who the hell are we? But the point is, he had a second chance in 2010. He had 15 and a half sacks. The following year, 19 and a half sacks, and it says at linebacker on Pro Football Reference.
Okay, well, hold on now. He was they voted for him in the year between 2000 and 2009 as to be on. Okay, so those 5 years that he was in the league, from 2005 to 2009, he had an 8-sack season, 11 and a half, 14, 20, and 11. So he played more seasons in this decade, this previous one right now, than in that decade. And he still had a hell of a decade, man. 15 and a half sacks, 19 and a half, 11 and a half. He had
He's
6,
a Hall of
a
Famer.
10.
DeMarcus Ware is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, absolutely.
All day long.
Yeah.
Isn't he already in there? I thought he was.
He should be there. I think he got one more year.
Oh, I thought he was in there already. All right.
So, I mean, I think you could maybe I haven't compared the numbers, but maybe a guy like Calais Campbell off and maybe add a guy like DeMarcus Ware on.
Well, forget about, we were talking about adding, and Ramon, I'm gonna read out a comment. Ramon said the Julius Peppers absolutely should not be on this list, but you haven't given us a name. You can't take people off without replacing them.
Right.
Who are you replacing Julius Peppers with?
What about Cam Hayward from the Steelers? He's been really good this decade, man.
Wasn't he like a hype? Like, didn't he play tackle?
Well, they play 3-4, so it's kind of it's kind of just run, stop, and go get the quarterback. But he's every year he plays, he's been terrific. I think he gets a little overshadowed because he got drafted the same year as Watt, and he kind of gets but he's been really good for his career. He's got a couple All-Pro teams. He's made some Pro Bowls. I mean, I don't know. That's a tough one, man. That's a little bit tougher than I thought. I really feel
Suggs pick too. He has the same numbers as Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell has 81 sacks. Terrell Suggs has 81 and a half sacks. But tackle for loss, Calais Campbell and has more with 30 more with 141. And QB hits, Calais Campbell has 186 compared to Terrell Suggs' 148. He does have more,
Could you put
19 more
DeMarcus
games.
Ware on
Yeah,
that
bro,
too?
Campbell was really good, man. It's hard. He's another one that he just plays. One, he plays a position that can be very thankless if you're not getting 15, 16 sacks. If you're consistently getting 9, 10, 11 sacks, very much like Cam Jordan does, and then you see the all decade team and you see his name, you're like, wait a minute, what? But when you look at the totality of his career, you see every year he has 8 sacks, 9 sacks. That's not hard. That's not easy, man. That's not an easy thing to do. You know what I mean? So it's one of those positions. It's probably the toughest position to do for us, I think. In outside maybe offensive line, which we skipped altogether. Andrew Whitworth should have been on the list. But it's what I was saying was I really feel like edge. We should make it edge rusher, because then it eliminates guys like Campbell. Because who would you rather have rushing the quarterback, Calais Campbell or Khalil Mack? Khalil Mack all day long. You're gonna put him at outside line. I think that's just weird all the way around. I think the NFL has evolved way too much from 2010 to now. We call guys edge guys now. Like when we look at mock drafts and when we look at guys coming into the league, we don't even see them as DEs or OLBs. We see them as either edge guys or guys that can cover.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Ramon's throwing some pretty interesting bits in the comment box. He's saying, we don't the media, we guys don't factor in the running stopping ability, a lot into the conversation. And when it came to defensive tackle, he brought up a name. He brought up Damian Harrison, Snacks. He reminded, that was a name that came up when it came to defensive tackle. Like, I know he doesn't have the sacks in his resume, but when it comes to run stopping ability, the man was a beast. He can, and nose tackle didn't get a lot of love, obviously, on this list, or never gets love from anybody.
I mean, but is Snacks Harrison better than Fletcher Cox though? No. Is he better than Geno Atkins, Donald, or Sue? No. He's not better than any of those guys.
No, I know, but that's a name I thought of, and when it came to like defensive tackle and the run stopping ability, and I'm just answering Ramon what he's saying. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, we have to make a decision here. Are we removing Calais Campbell or Cameron Jordan or any of these names from this list?
I'm gonna go with no, bro.
I'm
they're
thinking
going they're going with defensive ends, and Suggs was a linebacker because he played in a 3-4. Where was a linebacker, he played in a 3-4. You can't put them in place of him, so I'm gonna go with no.
Look, if you're talking defensive end, are we talking rushing the quarterback?
No, we're talking defensive end.
We're talking about defensive end. The NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame let out, and I guess they said defensive end. And I think, like I said, Cameron Wake was the only guy that really popped off out of my head when it came to defensive end position. Because when you're talking about just names, like what Joel was saying, just edge, I did look up DeMarcus Ware and Justin Houston.
Mm-hmm. But
they don't qualify. They're outside linebackers.
I don't know.
Right. They're not defensive ends. You can't put them there.
So I'm keeping the 4 names here.
Well, that's the thing. I don't have a name then to replace Calais Campbell.
Yeah, because if you do put it with edge, then Suggs obviously makes it. He was a DPO. He was Defensive Player of the Year. He's got 2 Super Bowls, right? He got All Pro. Like how do you keep him out? But he's not. They don't have him better than Chandler Jones or Khalil Avon, or So and you can't put him at DE. So what are you going? He might honestly. Suggs might be the biggest snub overall to me. Like he's been on offense and defense.
He's been a big name, big player for a long time. And you're talking about consistent and really good. Talking about being consistent. Yeah, I like that as being the biggest snub. Him or Drew Brees, even though we know who's in front of him. But I know what you mean. So if we move over to defensive tackle, Dave, we got Atkins, we got Donald, we got Sue and Cox. I don't see any names that I would replace here. I think they're pretty good right there.
If I'm replacing one name, I'm replacing Fletcher Cox.
For who?
I don't know.
You can't do that thing.
But I mean, I was trying to think of some names, some D tackles that that kind of may have dominated this last decade. And Haloti Nada came to mind, but I looked at his numbers and I was like, not really. Fletcher Cox has been in the league since 2012. And he only, I'm looking at his numbers right now. I'm struggling, man. I feel like he's only had like maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 good seasons tops from a production point standpoint. Now, I don't watch the Eagles games like an Eagles fan would. I don't sit there and watch every single game and every single snap, so I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But if we're looking at just at numbers, I feel like there's somebody out there who might be able to beat these numbers that he's put up in the last, 8 seasons maybe, I think.
Well, I would implore you to go look for him. I don't think he plays Cox plays over the center. So for you to get 5-6 sacks even on the strength just playing that, you're good, dog. You're really good at what you do.
He is more of a nose,
and
right?
when we're talking about playing the run too, he's very good at that as well.
He's more of a nose tackle, right?
Yeah, he's a defensive tackle. He plays on the inside. He plays with either over the center or with the guard.
Well, I'm saying because sometimes it depends on the scheme. If you're playing in a 3-4, you want a bigger, you want a nose tackle in the middle versus 2 D tackles.
Right. When he first came in the league, they had him as an end, and then they moved him more inside when what's the name, Schwartz came. Maybe even before Schwartz. But once they really put him inside, that's when he really just started like killing people.
Yeah.
Well, so Ramon's giving. When we get back to the defensive end for a moment, he said he would put Jared Allen over Peppers, and he thinks there's a debate for Snacks Harrison over Apkins because he's saying they were complete opposites. So you got Apkins, he goes after the passer, and he did nothing for the run, and Harris, all he did was the opposite. Stop the run and really didn't affect the pass rush as much. So, yeah, that's just debate there.
I don't think Snacks Harrison has any room to be on this list.
No, he doesn't, man.
Let's shut that down.
Snacks, too. But Snacks on third down isn't even on the field. On the most important down in the game, unless it's like 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, he's not on the field. No. If it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, you don't see him. How are you going to put him on all-decade team?
I didn't even realize that he would even be in this conversation.
Yeah, well, he was probably the best run-stopping defensive tackle this decade.
He is. But the NFL has gotten so far away from running the football.
Yeah, we know that.
It's hard for us to like value it so much.
Mm-hmm.
You can only value it so much.
I understand that argument. Hey, I'm not putting Snacks on my list. I'm just on what Ramon says. And we got to give some shout outs to run stopping, right? Just a little.
Yeah, hold on now.
The only tackle I could possibly think of, at least off the top of my head, is Gerald McCoy. That's the only one I could think of that,
I was just gonna say
could replace. Go ahead.
No, Bird Gang 559 in the chat says Gerald McCoy. Maybe he brought him up too.
Yeah, that's the only one I could think of that might be on that. Even Cam Hayward too, because they put him as a DT as well. That's another thing too. 3-4 guys who play the defensive line under 3-4. I think they get hurt here too because those guys don't have the stats usually. They're more like you have to be a little more versatile. You have to play the run and you have to get to the quarterback, but you also have to help out the outside linebackers. Those are the money guys that go get the quarterback usually. So guys like Cam Hayward, Fletcher Cox too, because Philly plays 3-4 a lot of the time. Those guys suffer a little more than guys who play a 4-3, like J.J. Watt, stuff like. Even though J.J. Watt is absolutely deserving, I'm not saying, but it's just he plays in a system that's more tailored for him to get that type of that type of publicity.
I want to say a document Sue should have been an unanimous decision also on this list.
Yeah.
He didn't get. Only Aaron Donald got it, and defensive tackle. I'm just saying Sue should have got it too.
2 of them. Okay.
It's an interesting
I mean,
thought. I mean, I think what hurts Sue is the fact that he hopped around from team to team. I think if he stayed in one place,
Because he's a smart businessman. So
no, it's
once
not
again,
about
his money.
no,
and he
not
didn't
about the money. I'm
and
just
he didn't win
saying.
anything.
Yeah, he didn't win, and he's a dirty player in a lot of circles. So
Mm-hmm.
so
In
that
every
didn't
circle,
help him either.
in every circle, square, triangle, he's
Yeah.
he's a dirty player.
Yeah, he is a dirty player. He's but I think he should have been on the.
Are we good to move on to
Mhm.
linebackers?
So I think we're good at defensive tackle. We'll move over to linebacker.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, we can't. Well, I can't put anybody there.
Okay.
All right, linebacker. We got Chandler Jones, Luke Kuechly, Khalil Mack, Von Miller, Bobby Wagner, and Patrick Willis. We got any names that we want to replace here? Let's put a nominee up.
No, I'm good with the list. I think Khalil Mack should have been a unanimous decision, though. I think that's
Von Miller
disrespectful.
was the only one.
Yeah, Von Miller was the only one. I think Khalil Mack should have also been unanimous. I think that's disrespectful. He's the only player in NFL history, Khalil Mack, to go to the same Pro Bowl at two different positions.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
he was all pro. Yeah, he was also all pro at two different positions too.
Come on, man.
Him and Watt did that. Yeah, that was.
And he's not unanimous. That's robbery right there.
Is this blasphemy? Patrick Willis?
Yes, it's blasphemy. You need to stop it right now.
I think.
For who though?
Maybe by his teammate, his
Bowman?
former teammate, Bowman.
Well,
Hell no.
Maybe.
No.
We're talking about the decade. Obviously, he's a better player. Okay, but Bowman was no slouch, and he had a longer career this decade by his own choosing. He had more tackles. When you talk about impact plays, Patrick Willis has less.
Tackles is a very, very, very deceiving stat. It might be the most deceiving stat in sports, I think. But go ahead, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
I'm just not. I don't think I'm gonna go with the switch. I just wanted to throw just a little sparkle right there, just a little something at Patrick Willis, because he only played 3-4 years in this decade.
Yeah.
And and his counterpart, who was come on, he was a Pro Bowler himself. Bowman played longer, and he had very productive years.
He didn't play that much longer though.
No, not much longer, but he had about 2-3 years at least.
The same year Willis retired. No, Willis got hurt. Bowman had that injury. Remember? He got hurt in the playoff game, right? In 2013. Did he not?
Let me go to the stats real quick. I think he did.
Yeah, he tore his ACL.
Yeah, he was out for 2014.
Game.
He was out for 2014.
Right, and then he came back 2015. He was good, but then
he led the league, and he actually, when he came back in 2015, he led the league in tackles.
Right, and then I don't think he did anything after that. Right, I think he got hurt again. And
he got hurt again, and then he had one in his last year. He had his last year was 2017.
Yeah, so he didn't really play that much more than Willis for us to put him over him.
Cool. I'm not gonna put him over. I just want you to just throw a name out there.
Which name was that? Because I was in the FanDuel comment box speaking to the guys. So which name were you guys talking about?
Navarro Bowman and Pat Willis.
No, I would take Willis.
Yeah, I would take Willis too. I just want to just throw a little something out there.
How about this one? What about Chandler Jones?
No, he's on the list.
He's on the list.
No, I'm saying, would you take Chandler Jones off for anybody?
No, absolutely not. That man's been underrated, and he's been one of the premier outside linebackers in this league for quite a few years now.
He's got the most sacks in the decade too.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I know. I think that's an easy one. I think you keep him. No.
Actually, no, the second most. Von has the most. He has the second most. Yeah.
I think they got the linebackers right now. Going back to DeMarcus Ware, where do you put DeMarcus Ware? Do you put him anywhere on this list between a D end and a linebacker? Like, where would you put a guy like him?
He's classified as a linebacker, and I don't think, obviously DeMarcus Ware had some big years, but are you going to put him over the other pass rushers, Miller or Mack? I don't think so.
Probably not.
You can't. I got another name that I wouldn't put him in there, but deserves to at least be recognized, because Clay Matthews. I think Clay Matthews he sacrificed his stats a couple times when moving inside. When he probably could have had a few more sacks had he stayed outside, and made his own personal like resume better, maybe for like Hall of Fame or whatever. But he did a lot of things to benefit Green Bay, and just I think he's one of the better linebackers of the decade. I just wanted to put that out there. I would put him even above Bowman.
Oh man, I think Clay Matthews is overrated.
Hey, he could be overrated. You got to be good to be overrated, though. So it's you know what I mean.
I think he had early on in Clay's career, he had a lot of success sacking the quarterback, but later on, he would over pursue. He would run up the backfield and totally miss quarterbacks, and he did not produce the way that a lot of fans and a lot of probably, the GM thought he was going to kind of continue on the path that he had started on. And from somebody who watched him every Sunday, I don't know, man. I think he was a little overrated compared to everybody else when they would talk about Clay and, he's this big-time pass rusher. I think he was a little overrated, in my opinion.
That's totally fine. I'm not. This isn't. But this wasn't a. This is more of like a who's performed the most over the decade, right? He had. I'll tell you right now. He had 81.5 sacks this decade. That's a lot. And he played. He didn't play much with the Rams, right? His last year in Green Bay, he didn't play much either. And as far as like rushing the quarterback, and 81.5 sacks when you're bouncing back and forth is pretty impressive. And I'm not going to put him on the list. And if you want to say he's overrated, you've seen him way more than I have. I'm not going to disagree. I'm just saying that, he's somebody that I would put as one of the better linebackers in the decade. That's all.
Just giving an honorable mention. I got no problem with that.
Right.
The only problem I do have is Football Hall of Fame, because they got these like the flex position. They got a DP position. How come they didn't do anything for linebackers defensive? How come they give up
that's what I'm saying.
Position or something like that?
If you put edge and then linebackers, this makes it a lot easier. Then some guys that made the list aren't on this list.
They should have did that, because they have these funky positions already on this all-decade team.
The slot position, the slot corner is, has become more vital throughout the decade. The slot cornerback now is super important. That flex guy that you could either play free safety or play the slot. Guys that do that, which is Tyron and Chris Harris. If you can do that for that one position, how do you not switch edge and Ds?
So is that where you put Suggs in that spot, that edge rusher type of player?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would do that.
Or do you keep him at linebacker?
If that opens up the comment. I'm just saying, if there was a position like that, that will open up the discussion a lot more and add some other names potentially to this list. But we're all pretty good at linebacker, correct?
Yeah.
Bobby Wagner is definitely there.
So we move. I think cornerback should be another easy one. We got Patrick Peterson, Darrelle Revis, and Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got no issues with that.
I ain't got no problem with that. That's pretty clear cut, man. That's pretty good.
And then we got the DB. See, this would I guess you broke it down for us, Joel, right? They put the slot, cornerback here, the flex, the DB where Chris Harrison Jr. and the Honey Badger is, and wait, I skipped over safety. Oh my God, I believe I just skipped over safety.
We can go back to it. It's okay.
No, I'm just saying the reason I've skipped over safety, because I think you could have possibly add some, but they were only exclusively safeties, and I don't think we could do that, because the names as safety we have Eric Berry, Earl Thomas, and Eric Weddle, and I think Cam Chancellor was a name that popped out.
Yes, that's a big time snub. And honestly, Tyrann Mathieu is not a better player than Aqib Talib this decade to me either.
Yep.
He's not better than him. And he's not better than Stephon Gilmore either.
What was Talib's position? Was he a DB? Did they have him as DB, like a safety?
Yeah, he He was a DB for for as long, he was out. He defended the best wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. Can we put him at the DB position? That was my argument here because when we're talking about the safety, do we have any issues with safety besides Cam not being? I mean, who are you going to replace?
Eric Weddle.
Eric Weddle probably, but I think Eric Weddle falls into the Jason Witten, Frank Gore, Fitzgerald camp.
Yeah, he does. But Cam, I mean, and Cam Chancellor didn't have a long career either. To where
I don't know about the Eric Weddle, man, because at least because I think I can go with the argument is Cam also had a bunch of talent around him. Okay, Eric Weddle, I don't know if he did as much, Maybe he did. Maybe Eric Weddle did have some talent.
I mean, we doing talent for safeties, though? Like, I don't know, man.
I'm just saying, when you got another safety and Earl Thomas on the other side, and you got an all-pro decade player and cornerback, I think your mindset is a little different, right? When you're playing this center field.
I mean, that's fair. Very fair point. But, I mean, if you stink, you stink, too. You could see it if he wouldn't be good. And,
of course, we know that.
They were definitely better when he played. You know what I mean? Like he would take people off the field. Like he would lay people out.
Oh, we know that. He was probably the hardest hitter of the decade, right?
Yeah. I think he's a better player.
Safety position. I look at Eric Berry. If I'm gonna change someone, I think I'd rather change Eric Berry than Eric Weddle for Cam. But I'm gonna keep the list of safeties.
Okay. What about Harrison Smith?
Well, that was the thing. He's like a hybrid, right? That's the thing that bothers me.
They got him as he's a strong safety now?
Yeah, so I think that's what bothers me here. Like there's a bunch of other names we can add, which you already mentioned here, that we can put at DB, but I don't think it's just a cornerback you could just slide in there or just a safety. I think you have to be a hybrid, and I think that's why Chris Harrison and Honey Badger made this list.
I don't know how Honey Badger makes this list.
I don't either.
That's honestly that's probably the most head scratching one to me personally. But I mean, whatever, he's not Chris Harris. I can see Chris Harris on that list. Chris Harris is fantastic. And he's the best slot corner of that decade.
I'm about to. I gotta stop you right there. Okay. If we're talking about the decade, okay, there's a man out there who was old, running around with a cane, and in half of the years had just as many interceptions as Chris Harris did the entire decade. You want to know who that was?
Oh, you gonna put your boy, the Hall of Famer?
Charles Woodson, man.
Charles Woodson, he was a hybrid.
Charles Woodson, okay, from 2010 to 2015, had 20 interceptions. You want to know how many interceptions Chris Harris had for the entire decade? 20. Same amount.
But that's another very misleading stat because Woodson was in Green Bay, right? But this is what we're talking about, right? Woodson, Green Bay.
We're talking Green Bay
right?
and Oakland.
He was more of a ball hawk in that's the role they put him in, right? Like, go pick passes off, right? Woodson wasn't more of a line up right across from somebody, cover this guy, make sure the ball doesn't even get thrown his way. Right? Revis had years where he didn't have a lot of interceptions either. But that's because nobody threw it to him. You know what I mean? Like it's a little different, man. So I can't really go just on the strength of interceptions. I mean, that's not to take away from Woodson because Woodson was great in Green Bay like those years. But Chris Harris to me covered the slot receiver better than anybody I could think of.
I want to ask, what year did he win? Oh, he won the Defensive Player of the Year in 2009.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Charles Woodson. There's a couple names that if you want to look at the defensive back, the secondary, you can look at McCourty from the Patriots. You can look at oh man, I just had the name in my damn head. Oh, Joe Hayden, right?
Joe Hayden,
excuse me. Yeah, Joe Hayden from the Browns.
The problem with Hayden too is he had a couple of really down years too, though.
Oh yeah,
he had some years where he was just like, oh man. What about Jonathan Joseph too? If we want to rate consistency, like my man Ez says, he was pretty consistent all decade, man.
For the Texans, right? For a lot of years, right?
Yeah, Jonathan Joseph was really good for a good amount of years.
What happened to the Aqib Talib conversation? I think he should be recognized.
Oh yeah, look, yo, if he this is what we were saying. How I don't know how Tyrann Mathieu gets in over Talib here if we're doing DBs because to leave to me after those three, if it ain't Stephon Gilmore, it's him, right? The best like if you were to rank the 5 best corners of the decade, it's Revis, Sherman, Patterson, right? Peterson rather. I'm sorry, Peterson, Gilmore, and Talib to me. So how do you put where does Tyrann Mathieu get? And Tyrann Mathieu had some down years too. Tyrann Mathieu had some really bad years in Arizona, which is why they let him go.
Mm-hmm.
So
like I said, I think it's this hybrid thing, and I think Dave convinced me, and the chat convinced me. If you're going with the hybrid, we did both. I'm going to go with Charles Woodson over Honey Badger. I'm taking him out.
I'm taking both out.
And who are you putting in?
Woodson and Talib.
Well, Talib didn't play safe. That's the thing. That's
Talib,
the only reason
isn't he? Didn't he? Has he not?
By their quote unquote standards.
Because you want to look at why they got him at cornerback primarily. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Man, but it's a DB. DB plays cornerback too, right?
Yeah, but it's all about the hybrid conversation. It's a player who has played both. And Woodson, to start this last decade in Green Bay, he was playing cornerback. And in his last couple season or two in Green Bay, he was playing safety. And he goes to where? He goes to Oakland, where they put him where? At safety. So he was playing both. And they have him as a DB. And in my opinion, you can replace one of these two guys. And I think you got to put Woodson in because he was still producing at a high level for his age. And he played for about half of that decade. Maybe, I think, a season more. What is it, 6 seasons? So I'm putting Woodson in. Whether we're taking out Harris or Honey Badger, you can choose whoever you want to take out, but I'm putting in Woodson.
Okay. I mean, if we're gonna do that, I'd rather take Matthew. I don't think Woodson makes the team better as much as Harris did. Harris was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm taking out Honey Badger. I'm keeping Harris on this all decade. I'm taking out Honey Badger for Woodson. So I guess that concludes the offense and defense. Specialties, I guess we are specialists we don't care about, right? Except Devin Hester deserved to be on this list. That's the only name that
he wasn't on. He didn't make the list.
No, he made kick return, but he wasn't. Can you believe this? He wasn't unanimous.
Crazy.
That boggles my mind there.
So wait, Sproles made the team twice?
Yep, he made the team twice. He made it as a punt returner. Tyreek Hill made it as a punt returner. Cardell Peterson made it as a kick returner, and Hester made it as a kick returner.
All right. Whatever, man.
Darren Sproles is the legend, you know?
He's done after...
He might be the best player of the whole decade. He just might be number overall. He's got 2 positions. Darren Sproles definitely deserves to be a punt returner on this.
Yeah, but I don't know about flex. I would put Hill as a flex over Sproles. Then we're gonna do that.
Yeah, this is that flex makes no sense. So how about we just eliminate flex?
Yes, Sproles, they're off the team. Give us one of those jackets back, Sproles. Thanks.
That's it. Coaches. Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll. We have any problems with this?
Pete Carroll?
Maybe.
I have a mention, that's for sure. Andy Reid.
Yes.
Andy Reid.
Yes.
But it's tough. It's tough to take out Pete Carroll, right? 2 Super Bowls.
Yes. No, he's been to 2 Super Bowls, right? He didn't win 2.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying he went to 2 Super Bowls. But I love Andy Reid. Andy Reid, he should be a Jets head coach, but whatever. That's not the point here. I think Andy Reid deserves a lot of discussion in this, right? Consistency, the quarterback whisperer. I think, he's been the best quarterback whisperer the last 10 years of this league. Easy.
Oh, yeah.
Andy Reid is just model. He went from one franchise that went for how many NFC championships? 5?
4.
And then he goes to the Chiefs. They go to 2 AFC championships. He turns around that whole organization by himself. I think Andy Reid, man, deserves a lot of consideration here. So you're officially making that switch. You're putting Andy Reid over Pete Carroll.
I would, yes. I would definitely do it.
I personally like Andy Reid more, just as I guess a person. I don't know why I cannot stand Pete Carroll for whatever reason. It might have to do something with that 2014 NFC Championship game, but
Man, maybe.
I've always liked Andy Reid as a coach, and Pete Carroll has been. I mean, he had an earlier stint in the NFL, and then he came back. He was at USC, then he came to see. He had 2 before this one in Seattle.
Yeah, he coached the Jets and he coached the Patriots. He coached both of them.
Okay, that was a while ago though.
Yeah, a long time ago. But I love Andy Reid. I think he should be the Jets head coach a long time ago. But that's not the point here. I think I'm gonna keep Pete Carroll here. Okay.
I'm gonna put Andy Reid over. I'm gonna tell you one. Maybe, possibly. This might be close. He's probably the best play caller out of everybody, right? As far as like designing his offense and now game management, clock management, he's always been a little funny. But actually, like calling plays and designing plays, man, this guy is great. His coaching tree, another thing,
Fantastic.
It's better than anybody. You know what I mean? He's got coaches now that were on his staff that are winning. You know, Philly won the Super Bowl. That was an Andy Reid guy, the head coach. Like he's ahead of Carroll.
Let me tell you something about the Philly winning the Super Bowl or Philadelphia winning the Super Bowl. What's his name? Their head coach, Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson and Andy Reid were both in Green Bay in that '96 Super Bowl season. So shout out to my Packers, man, making things happen.
Well, was it? That's from that head coach, homegrown. He had a sick coaching tree himself.
He's from the Bill Walsh tree though.
Now, if you want to talk about trees, Bill Belichick's tree is garbage. Straight hot trash. Who's had success outside of him?
Well, I mean, we may not agree with him as a GM, but Bill O'Brien's been all right, man.
No.
He wins games.
No, he should not be a GM.
I don't know.
What?
He
wins games until what? Until he makes it to the playoffs, and then what?
I mean, so then what? Will we have eliminated Andy Reid up until this year then?
No, because Andy Reid has actually been able to take a team into the playoffs and deep into the playoffs multiple times on numerous occasions.
So what do you do? What do you base it on then? Do you just base it on like winning Super Bowls? Is that what you're
talking about? One guy from his tree. I know you're hoping for a second guy, which is the new Giants head coach. You hope.
I like him. I like him a lot, actually.
Yeah, I know
Joe Judge. Yeah, I like him a lot.
Joe Judge. So I know you wish that that tree extends a little bit more and blooms, but Bill Belichick's overall tree has been pretty bad. Even though he comes from the Bill Parcells tree.
You guys should see
my boy, the Big Tuna. That's my boy right there. That's my favorite coach of all time.
Isn't what's the name? I mean, he didn't. And I mean, NFL success, no. But isn't Saban a Belichick guy too?
Yeah, I believe he is, right?
Yeah,
I believe he is. But we're talking about the NFL. We're talking about real professionals.
Real football, right? Yeah.
You should wait.
College students. All right, okay. Now we stop.
Wait to see what Mike Vrabel has to do or what he ends up doing in Tennessee. I think it's a little too early for him.
He's been looking good so far.
Yeah, he's been looking all right so far, even though that extension to Ryan Tannehill's looking a little...
That's gonna kill them.
Ooh.
That's gonna crush them.
Man, that's bad. Oh.
If you guys want to see some coaches all together on one team, look up that 96 team. I think 95, 96 Packers team, their coaching staff, man. They had Andy Reid, Steve Mariucci on there. They had John Gruden.
They didn't have John Gruden on that team?
Yeah, they had John Gruden. Holmgren was their head coach. Like, they had a squad of coaches on that team. Like, it was pretty impressive. So
what Tomahawk wrote, Mike Tomlin is the Frank Gore of coaches last decade. I think that's another guy that deserves consideration for coach of the decade. I like that name. Even though he didn't mention that, I like it personally as a name.
Doesn't he have a Super Bowl this decade too?
No.
He doesn't?
No, that was 2000. It was 2009, 2010. So it was a 2000. No. Wait. 2008.
No.
It was 2008, 2009 against the Cardinals. That was the last Super Bowl they won.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But, but model consistency, Mike Tomlin gets beat up a lot. but he's always been he's been a winner this whole decade.
I was
He
gonna
went to the playoffs
mention
how many years this whole decade? Probably what 1, 2, 3, about 6 times to the playoffs this decade.
I was gonna mention him, but I mean, if I mentioned him, I would have had to mention 2 other names being Sean Payton and Mike McCarthy. But I mean, you're not gonna really put those guys in the conversation because they didn't end up really.
You know what? Another name that might deserve. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it.
Oh, here we go.
Even though I forgot his name for a moment. I can't believe I forgot his name. This is disrespect, but the man that coached the Bengals for all those years.
No, man.
Marvin Lewis.
Marvin Lewis deserves a little something. He turned around an organization here.
He turned him around to where?
Just respectable.
Yeah.
Respectable. The Bengals in the early 2010s were very, they got a lot of media attention. They got a lot of respect, okay? That were a very talented team, and that was because of him.
Yeah.
Damn sure it wasn't ownership.
If Palmer didn't get hurt, they probably would have won some playoff games too. They probably would have got a lot. That really set them back, I think, when Palmer got hurt in that playoff game.
Well, Ramon brought up another name, and he's my favorite coach. I've said it for years. I think after Bill Belichick, I think he's the best coach in football, John Harbaugh.
Oh, yeah.
I like that name. That's a good name. That's a good name.
Actually, I may have him over Reed now, come to think of it.
John Harbaugh is my favorite. I'm talking about personal favorite coach in the NFL is John Harbaugh.
Great coach.
Fantastic coach. So I want to give a shout out to Ramon. He brought it up. He also brought up Ron Rivera. He had a very good decade, but I don't know if I put him in the echelon with Andy Reid, John Harbaugh. He did bring the Panthers to the Super Bowl. So Ron Rivera does deserve a little love. So shout out to you. But yeah, John Harbaugh. Yeah, my favorite coach. But Mike Tomlin, don't disrespect Tomlin. Don't disrespect Mike Tomlin. He's had a lot of success this decade. He's had a lot of success with the Steelers, period. His job should not be in jeopardy. Just like John Harbaugh's job shouldn't have been in jeopardy 2 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
heard that stupidity.
He would have got picked up right away, though.
Oh, I wish he would have got picked up by the Jets.
Immediately. Why you got to make it by the Jets, man?
Because that's all the thing I care about. I need some winning in my life. Man. I'm between a Packers and a Giants fan. Oh, you got Super Bowl this whole lifetime. I ain't got nothing. Okay.
You don't got one Super Bowl as?
You know what? I gotta say we do have one Jet on the all-decade team. So, woo! And he won his Super Bowl with the Patriots, which is disgusting.
Who was that?
Belichick.
Darrell Reeves.
No, he said Belichick.
I just realized there's no Giants.
Nah, man, we sucked this decade.
Yeah, we sucked this decade.
I mean, hey, the Packers only had Aaron Rodgers. If you switch out Breeze for Rodgers, we got nobody.
Well, I put Charles Woodson. Okay,
yeah,
I made that replacement, and Joel mentioned Clay Matthews. So
I'm not putting him on the team.
Look, he's not putting him on the team, but you got to mention how many Jets were mentioned besides me saying Nick Mangold, Darrell Reeves, Lee in Washington.
What about a tackle? I know we skipped over that, but a guy like maybe David Bakhtiari at left tackle. He's held it down for a while now there, and his name wasn't.
No, those tackles are pretty set there, though, man.
Well, Trent Williams, I don't know. Was he on this list?
No, it was Joe Staley, Jason Peters, Tyron Smith, Joe Thomas.
And Joe Thomas.
Yeah,
so yeah, it's tough to get into the offensive line.
Joe Thomas, man, I feel bad for that guy. Joe Thomas is probably one of the most, respectable NFL players and one of the most humble guys. And he goes to a franchise in Cleveland and he wins nothing. He gets nothing there. And he played however many consecutive snaps in a row. Before he ended up getting hurt and just retired. But, man, a guy like Joe Thomas deserves a lot more than what he got.
See, respectability. You see, it means a lot. And that's what Marvin Lewis did for the Bengals. Brought him to respectability.
You said he in the early 2010s, Marvin Lewis helped turn that team around. Wasn't he head coach since 2003?
He was a head coach for a long time. I'm just saying. For a long time, he was the second longest tenured coach behind Bill Belichick. I'm just saying he actually brought the Bengals to respectability, which was almost impossible for prior he getting there. No one respected the Bengals.
No one even wanted to coach them because that owner is horrible.
Aren't they owned by the same guy still?
Same guy.
Yeah, it's the same guy. So
you know who's a worse owner? Let me tell you who's a worse owner than the Bengals owner. This is hands down Dan Snyder. Washington Redskins.
I'd rather have Dan Snyder than Mike Brown.
Yeah, I'd rather have that. Yeah, all day long.
Because Dan Snyder is not afraid to spend money.
Dan Snyder is not afraid to spend money on garbage players, guys who.
It doesn't matter. At least he's a lot. At least look at that. They're having trouble. There's discussion. Should they even resign AJ Green? Why is that a discussion?
No, they shouldn't resign him because who the hell wants to play for the Bengals right now?
AJ Green for the right amount of money.
AJ Green doesn't want to play for the Bengals. Let him go get what you can. Or can they tag him? I don't know. Can they tag and trade him?
Yeah, of course they can.
Tag and trade him.
But I would rather play for Snyder than play for Brown.
Me too. Any day of the week.
I think what's the name is a worse owner too. Homeboy from the Chargers.
Yeah,
that was a terrible decision to even relocate your team to Los Angeles. That was an all-time bad move.
Yeah.
All-time bad move. That's gonna destroy them.
Bro, they don't keep anybody. Just Rivers. Everybody that when it comes to contract, they nickel and dime everybody. Even Bosa, before he even signed with them his rookie deal, they nickel and dime.
Mm-hmm. Oh, whoa, we got a Raider Hobby says Mora Jr., owner of the Giants, underrated bad owner.
Oh, yes, I agree. He's a terrible owner. But he's not as bad as the other ones. But he's on his way, though.
Well, I just noticed something. This wasn't on the list, but I think this is an easy answer. Owner of the decade, right?
Kraft.
So that's what I'm saying. That's the easy one, but they didn't have that on this list. If you're talking about Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I think owners can make the Pro Football Hall of Fame,
yeah.
Why didn't they add an owner onto this, which would be Robert Kraft? But any mentions of maybe the Ravens owner?
How about the Packers owners?
Oh, which is the public?
The fans.
Which is a public...
the only fan-owned franchise in professional sports. Isn't that something?
I imagine there's a lot of scumbags in the Packers ownership. I imagine there's a lot of bozos there, so I'm not going to go with that.
Yes.
No.
Probably has the most assholes in the league.
Who's owners? Oh. No, but you said, who did you say before I chimed in? What did you say?
I was saying the Ravens owner could be one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make the Hall of Fame as I think it's called a contributor. I think that's like the actual title for it. But that's how owners get in.
Okay. Well,
there aren't that many though.
Well, if you want to go, if you just talk about team success, that's what you're gonna go with guys like that. But Jerry Jones is just talking about business side of it. All time, he's a Hall of Famer.
He is in the Hall of Fame though, isn't he?
He's in the Hall of Fame already. Okay, I'm just saying, Jerry Jones deserves it because just on the business side of football, deserves a lot of love. And I think this discussion was a lot of fun today, talking about this all-decade team. Finally, some content during this quarantine, Corona, Miss Rona 19.
Yeah, man.
I think that was the first time on this whole show podcast that we've even mentioned the word Corona. But real quick to go, yeah, good is right. The owner I probably want to play for is Arthur Blank, the Falcons. I don't know why. I just really like.
He ensues loyalty. He seems very loyal to his guys.
Yes.
He's very good owner.
Yes.
You're right.
And that's kind of what draws me to him is the loyalty, and that's kind of what you look for when it comes to dealing with millions of dollars and your future. So I mean, that's probably a guy I'd probably go and play for.
That's a good shout out right there.
I hope he buys the Giants soon, man. Because Mara got to go, dog.
That's a family. They're not leaving. They're not selling the Giants.
No,
that's a family owned. That's not.
Both of them, the Tish and Mara. They're just so stuck in the past, man, with everything.
Oh, this was. I think that I'm gonna go with. Okay, this is a good question. Before we get out of here, what about GM of the decade?
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick.
Is he really?
They don't have a GM. Bill Belichick's the GM.
They don't have a GM. He's saying that they're just asking in the comment box. Who do we think?
Bill Belichick.
For GM of the decade, I want to go off top of my head. I'm going to go with Ozzie Newman. A lot of Ravens love on my side today.
That's a good one.
Awesome.
That's a good
I'm
one.
gonna go with Ozzie Newman.
You mean Newsome?
Newsome, right?
Yeah.
Newsome, yeah.
I think that's a good one. I can't think of anybody like immediately off the top of my head. Because then you got teams that every couple seasons they end up switching GMs. I'm just gonna stick with Bill Belichick, man.
Yeah, well, the man won 3 Super Bowls this decade, so
So
I can't really
to get it done as a GM and as a head coach, that's impressive.
The new decade is gonna be Joe Douglas, but that's all right.
I like what y'all are doing personally.
With what? Oh wait, with the Jets?
Yeah, I like.
Oh,
what
I like
y'all
it too.
doing.
Yeah, I definitely like what he's done so far. He's going for some valued contracts and trying to find diamonds in the rough, et cetera, et cetera. Finding the value. He's finding.
Yeah, I would probably put Belichick. I was trying to think maybe like homeboy from the Eagles, Howie Roseman. He's been really good too. But yeah, it's probably Belichick.
We got what about Seattle's GM? Was it John Snyder?
John Snyder.
Didn't he leave though?
Solid. No, I think he's still there.
So we got a couple names there. Okay.
Homeboy Steelers GM is really good too. Colbert, Kevin.
Yeah.
He's really good, man.
We got a couple names there.
And they don't sign anybody like ever, right? Pittsburgh never spends money on a free agent. All the guys they draft them. Like that's the mark I think of a really good GM.
And they stay consistent.
Yeah, I can't even think of the last time the Steelers like really went out and threw money at a free agent like that.
Well, and you can't think of the last time they were terrible either.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention Ted Thompson, but Ted Thompson for the Packers, with his whole
he's the same way.
Draft and develop. They did not sign any free agents, dude. Nobody they signed. The only big name that they signed when he was in GM
right?
was Charles Woodson.
That was our last GM. That wasn't Joe Douglas, excuse me. That wasn't that sign. He's saying value. He said C.J. Mosley and Le'Veon. That was our old GM, not our new one. Anyway, I think this was a very nice Red Zone Blitz Idiot Ezra podcast, which you guys can find on Apple and Spotify. Got to put in my cheap plug. I haven't done it. An hour and 40 minutes it took me to do a cheap plug.
Good job.
Usually I get a little filthier than that.
Way to go, brother.
That's how I do it. Also, if you want to check out some live gaming streams on Warzone, because I suck, it's on facebook.com/Idiot Ezra. I get about 3 kills a game.
Hey, you know what, Ez? Maybe I should hop on one of these days because I have it too. So
what are you doing, bro?
I don't know.
I need a squad. I only got 4 wins on Warzone.
Would just solo or squad or what?
That's what squad. Okay? 4 wins, and I don't want to talk about the losses. I do have 75 top 10s though. How about that one?
All right. Yeah. Well, maybe we can hop on if you want to stream it.
I'm like Andy Reid. It takes a while before I win the big one, but I get in the top 10. I get up there. I get in there.
Yeah. Well,
when it comes to multiplayer, I do smack him in the face.
Great job, Ez.
Well,
it's dinner time, yo.
Yeah, it's time to skedaddle. Dave from Wake Up is Football, Ez from Idiot Ezra podcast, and Joel Rodriguez joining us today
from the Bronx. Yes,
from the Bronx. You guys both from the Bronx?
Yeah, I'm from the Bronx too.
Yeah, you guys both from okay. But no, that's all we got for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to Raider, Javi, Ramon, Tomahawk, everybody else in the chat, Cubone, Bird Gang, everybody else who I didn't mention. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today, tuning in. And maybe you'll see us again next Sunday. We'll see if there's anything to talk about. The draft is on the horizon. But that's all we got for you guys today. And we're out.
All right.
Have a good one. Check out the page.
Pretty good, yo.